What's up, nerds? It's Mike with NerdFellas, and I'm here with a review for Shazam. Shazam follows Billy Batson, a streetwise foster kid who is summoned by an ancient wizard to wield his powers, turning the 14-year-old into an adult superhero. As he discovers the powers with the help of his new friend Freddie Freeman, the evil Thaddeus Savannah seeks to destroy him with the help of the seven deadly sins, ancient monsters that are hell-bent on destroying humanity. Now, I'm going to go ahead and get started with the good. And basically, the film is hilarious. This is basically DC's first comedy superhero film. So, Zachary Levi is great playing Shazam. And the chemistry that he has with Jack Dylan Grazer, who plays Freddie Freeman, the chemistry between them is just on point. Like, they really don't miss a beat. And definitely a lot of the comedy really comes from Jack Dylan Grazer, who has a lot of, crazy reactions and things that he does to try and help Shazam find his powers. So there's definitely great chemistry. It is hilarious. It's definitely something that's like a popcorn film, something to go and enjoy with the family. I will say there are parts of it that could be a little scary, especially when we reveal the seven deadly sins, which are literal seven huge crazy monsters, and the things that they do and just the way they look. I would probably expect a lot of kids to have nightmares after seeing them, but other than that, the film as a whole, besides that, is just a great fun ride. Billy Batson, who's played by Asher Angel, is searching for his mother ever since he got lost as a little kid, and he's just been going from foster home to foster home, and at the same time getting into trouble, but mostly in part just trying to find his mother. So along the way, he goes into a new foster home where he meets a bunch of, his new foster parents, these foster kids, and the chemistry that's within that house between the kids and the foster parents. I mean, it's believable. It doesn't ever feel forced between them all together. Everyone has their own individual personalities that just really work together. And there's hilarious moments just between them and surprises too. And it's really awesome to see that everyone got to shine pretty evenly. The star is Shazam and Freddie Freeman, but everyone has a little bit of time to shine in the film where it's just enjoyable and you get to know these characters, and it's just fun to see them progress throughout the film. The bad guy actually kicks off the film. I'm not going to say really, too much details on how we meet him or he's introduced, but Mark Strong is the actor who plays the evil Thaddeus, and he always brings it. There's something about Mark Strong that he always plays a great bad guy. He definitely delivers the goods. He's evil. You can be afraid of him. He's not afraid to, he's just menacing, really. And I would say the best way to think about this film, and it's very often compared in a lot of reviews, that this movie is like Big meets Superman. So, just imagine a kid, 14-year-old kid, who hasn't really experienced, a lot of adulthood things. Just imagine a kid like that becoming an adult overnight, being able to turn into this superhero with powers that he doesn't even know, he doesn't even realize his full potential. So, what would a kid do? And the film does a great job of exploring, that mentality of having a kid with superpowers. Even as a kid, you kind of have limitations, or your mind has limitations as to what you're capable of or what you can do. So you can see that like internal struggle with Shazam, because he really doesn't know. Billy Batson, the character who becomes Shazam, he doesn't know what to do with his powers. And when he finally is confronted by a bad guy, by Thaddeus Savannah, then all of a sudden, the whole dynamic changes, and he has to figure out who he is and how to defeat this guy. And this is definitely new ground for DC, because Zack Snyder had the DC franchise going in a darker tone, and there's still rumors of what we could see, maybe a Justice League cut from Zack Snyder, which some say exists, some say doesn't. I really don't know. But the new direction DC is going, from what I can see, is just concentrating on these individual films. It basically started with Wonder Woman. Just, I would want to go back as far as Man of Steel, but, with Man of Steel, it had that darker tone to it, which led into Batman versus Superman and kind of bled in Justice League. And Justice League just had that weird concoction where it was half dark, half light, and it was just not that great. And we don't even want to get into the whole Superman mustache fiasco. But, Wonder Woman was such a great film, and it tied to that part of the universe, but it was its own thing. And then we got Aquaman, which was just a fun ride. So now we have Shazam, and you can kind of see this direction that they're going, and all the films are part of the same universe. So it's just finally refreshing to see that DC is recognizing that each of these films can have their own personality. And Shazam definitely has its own personality, its own comedic flair. So I think that's what is going to make this one of the best DC films ever. And I think one of the awesome things that it also kind of touches on is, a child's perception of things and, expectations versus reality. Kind of seeing it through a child's eyes, what does a child see versus what really happened, from an adult's eyes and a child's eyes, and just seeing how something from someone's past can affect them in the future. There's not really too much bad to say about this film. I would say that there are parts of the film that can get a little dark, even though it's a little funny, more for adults, especially when we see the seven deadly sins. It's something that kind of pulls you out of it because it turns almost into a horror film just for a couple of scenes, but it kind of pulls you out of that comedic moment, like, oh wow, that's a little freaky, like why did they go a little too far? And maybe not, but it was something that maybe I'd cover my kids' eyes, like, oh whoa, I didn't see that coming. And it doesn't really happen throughout the whole film, maybe one or two scenes, but it's something that kind of changes the chemistry of the film for a little bit. But I mean, it's not too much, that's just nitpicking. I will say the film kind of is a little, maybe not so much cliche, but a lot of the events that occur, I was able to call it out ahead of time. I was able to say, oh, I bet you this is going to happen, and it happened. And I bet you this is going to happen, and it happened. And then my wife told me to shut up, stop talking about what's going to happen, because now you're already telling me what's going to happen. Did you see this movie? No, this is the first time we're seeing it. It can be a bad thing sometimes when it's expected, when you see things in a film and you already know, you can anticipate what the next beat of the film is going to be. Even with those expectations of where the film's going to go, it was still fun to watch and to see it unravel. And I think there were some points of the film where there was some forced sentiment where they kind of wanted you to feel something and feel that heart. And the film has it. The film has the kind of heart to pull at your emotions, but at the same time, there's a couple of moments where you're kind of like, all right, we get it. Or I didn't really see that, they kind of feed it to you with words, with dialogue. And then you're kind of like, well, the dialogue in contrast with what you're actually seeing, it doesn't really feel that way. So there's parts where I think they're trying to force feed some of that heart, that sentiment. And either way, it wasn't horrible. I was able to stomach it and keep moving forward. And it didn't really happen that often because most of the time the film is just fun, and I didn't really have a big problem with it. Even though Mark Strong is an amazing bad guy, there's still that bad guy problem. There's that bad guy problem where you're not fully invested into what the bad guy or the villain believes. It's not something that I really care for the villain side. And I think the good villains are the ones where you're like, well, I kind of feel for that guy, versus maybe he's just being a whiny little punk and he became a bad guy for a pretty dumb reason. So, I mean, I don't want to spoil anything, but, it just seeing the development of the bad guy, I mean, it's good development. You can see that point of view, and you can make an argument to, yeah, I mean, the path that guy chose into becoming a villain, yeah, I can see that happening, but it didn't really make a connection with me as far as, yeah, I'd feel the same way. But Mark Strong still delivers a great performance, and they didn't get too crazy with it. So I think that it was fun, and there's there's even a really hilarious moment between him and Shazam towards the end of the film, and I think it's probably the funniest where I was just laughing out loud because it's something that happens in movies that they kind of make fun of, and you'll when you see it, you'll know what I'm talking about. They're both just in the air. But anyway, so just watch it. We have the good, we have the bad. Here's the ugly, and it's a great superhero comedy. This film is a comedy film with action, so it has action, it has heart, it has comedy, but ultimately it's a comedy. And it's definitely something that I would recommend going to the theater for. It's something that I would add to my collection. There's a lot of hilarious moments. There could be some moments where, there might be a little bit scary for kids, but if your kids are used to a bunch of rated R crap, then they're going to be just fine. The chemistry between Shazam, who's played by Zachary Levi, and Jack Dylan Grazer, who plays Freddie Freeman, their chemistry is what carries the film. And I can't wait to see a sequel, because this was a real treat for the beginning to kick off spring. It's very rare that we get a really good film like this, and now I'm starting to form different expectations of what to see from DC films. So I'm excited to see where it's moving forward after Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Shazam. They're going in a great direction. I hope they keep going that way. Ultimately, I'm going to give this film a 3.5. Comment below if you saw the film. What were your thoughts? Did you like the movie? Was it okay? What are your thoughts? The film comes out this coming weekend. Make sure that you follow, like, subscribe, and let us know what you thought. Other than that, I'm Mike with NerdFellas. Nerd out.